Coming up on Network Africa, Angola ends its mediation role in the DRC-Rwanda conflict, citing the need to shift focus to broader continental priorities. The World Food Programme cuts its food rations as new refugee arrivals from the DRC test its Burundi operations. Plus, Chad condemns Sudan's threat of targeting airports, calling it a declaration of war. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin with the crisis in the DRC. Angola says it is deciding to end its mediation efforts in the ongoing conflict that involves the M23 rebels, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda. The country cites a series of failed negotiations and external interference as its reasons. After nearly 2 months of serving as the African Union's chair, Angola says it recognized the need to shift its focus to broader continental priorities, including peace, infrastructure, economic development, and justice for Africans. Angola's mediation efforts had faced numerous challenges, including the rejection of talks by the M23 rebels last week, who cited international sanctions as a barrier to engagement. The negotiations were further complicated by a sudden meeting between DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame in Doha, Qatar. The conflict in the DRC has intensified recently, with the M23 rebels capturing key towns in North and South Kivu provinces, displacing thousands of people and worsening the humanitarian crisis. Despite diplomatic efforts, violence between the DRC and M23 continues, underscoring the urgent need for dialogue. Goma is one of the cities captured by the M23 rebels. Dozens of demonstrators in the city have taken to the streets to denounce the recently announced mining agreement between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the United States. According to the agreement, Kinshasa authorities plan to grant Washington access to strategically important mineral deposits in exchange for military support in the fight against the M23 rebel group. Protesters marched through the streets of Goma, shouting and carrying signs calling for the resignation of DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi, while demanding U.S. President Donald Trump to not sign any agreement with the DRC president. The mining proposal was reportedly first outlined by President Tshisekedi in February, where he sought to exchange the supply of cobalt, lithium, copper, and tantalum for military boost in the country's ongoing conflict with militant groups. The U.S. in turn expressed interest in the deal, as it is open to discussing partnerships in this sector that the administration says are aligned with Trump's America First agenda. Let's discuss this further. Joining us now is Public Affairs Analyst Babajide Benson for more on this. I understand we don't have our guest quite yet. We'll try and reconnect with him. But in the meantime, Burundi's president says he has seen credible intelligence that Rwanda plans to attack his country. The president, Evariste Ndayishimiye, also said that Rwanda had tried to launch a coup a decade ago in Burundi. Well, Rwanda has already hit back, calling the president's comments surprising, and is insisting that the two neighbors are cooperating on security plans for their shared border, which has been shut for over a year. Despite extensive UN evidence, Rwanda has always denied arming and backing the M23 rebel group, which has recently seized large parts of eastern DR Congo alongside Rwandan troops. Rwanda has also denied links to the resurgent Red Taraba rebel group, which President Ndayishimiye says is a proxy force similar to the M23 and is being supported by Rwanda to destabilize Burundi. More on the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The UN World Food Programme, WFP, has mobilized additional assistance in Burundi to support the large influx of families fleeing the violence in the eastern region of Congo. The sharp increase in refugees in need of aid has placed a significant strain on WFP's assistance programs in Burundi. Since January 2025, nearly 70,000 people, mainly women, children, and the elderly, have fled fighting in DRC to Burundi, many of them making dangerous river crossings and walking long distances in search of safety. More continue to arrive each day, adding to what is already the largest influx into Burundi in decades. Cross-border movement into DRC's other neighbors, including Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania, is also increasing due to the escalating conflicts in the country's east, and this threatens to worsen hunger across the region.
What we are seeing now in the stadium is basically the people who are fleeing the crisis in this Eastern Democratic Republic, arriving in Burundi and doubling the number of refugees in country. We have been able to provide these refugees in this camp with the hot meals as soon as they arrived here, and we are able to provide this basically because we had to reduce the assistance to the old refugee caseload and provide them with something we had in hand. This crisis had put an immense pressure on WFP's food pipeline, which we are stretched. We are appealing to donor communities to come forward and provide funds so WFP can assure the emergency food assistance to this new caseload as well as the previous refugees which are in the country, which has been here for more than decades.
Chad has condemned a senior Sudanese general's threat to target its airports, calling it a declaration of war. The foreign ministry said it will respond accordingly to international law if a square meter of Chadian territory is threatened. The warning follows comments from General Yasser al-Attah, the deputy commander of Sudan's army, who said the UAE was using Chad's airports to deliver weapons to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The Sudanese army has repeatedly accused the UAE of supporting its rival, the RSF, throughout the brutal two-year civil war, which has created the world's worst humanitarian crisis. UN experts have described accusations of the UAE smuggling weapons to the RSF through Chad as credible. However, the UAE has denied this. Though the general's comment follows Sudan's recent decision to take the UAE to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, over its alleged support of the RSF. Well, let's take you back to our leading story for today. Angola announcing its decision to end its mediation role in the DRC-Rwanda conflict. Joining us now for more on this is Babajide Benson, a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Angola has been at the forefront of mediation between the DRC and Rwanda, but this has faced numerous challenges. With the country pulling out now, where does this leave the conflict in Eastern Congo?
It leaves us in a worrisome situation. I suspect that the reason given for Angola's pulling out is one that is a convenient one, which is the leadership of the African Union, so that they can concentrate on that. But having spent over 2 years trying to call for a truce in the protracted crisis, they must have heaved a sigh of relief when this additional responsibility of having to lead the AU came calling. Now, what this means is that the crisis can escalate further. It means it is a loss of capacity on the part of Angola. And it means that we have a bigger crisis on our hand. The numbers of people that have been displaced put at about 7.2 is likely to increase now that there's no mediator at the table. Can you hear me?
Yes, well, trying to bring the warring parties at a table has proved difficult, and I'm talking about the rejection of talks by the M23 rebels last week. And then we also saw the leaders of DRC and Rwanda meeting directly. But then this was in Qatar. Is Angola, you've mentioned that, it's a convenient reason for them, but are they justified in pulling out, especially as they are the African Union chair?
Well, don't forget that Angola just became African Union chair. Angola just became African Union chair. And are they justified? I mean, when you beat a drum so long and it's not producing any sound, you might as well call it quits. But taking it forward, I think it's about time the AU, the UN, and any of the other international bodies consider setting up a body of eminent persons. So the responsibility that was placed on the shoulders of Angola, I think, is something that should have been placed on the shoulders of a group of eminent persons. You probably have to call them out of retirement if they ever were in retirement. And I speak of the likes of former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. If we still had the likes of Kenneth Kaunda, Nelson Mandela, and possibly Kofi Annan, those would have been people who are qualified to be on such a team. But it doesn't look like Rwanda or DRC had any regard for Angola. And that's why we need a body of multilateral elder statesmen to call them to the table to get a truce.
Yes, and the crisis continues even amid all of this. The M23 is one of the many armed groups in that region backed by Rwandan troops, even though Rwanda continues to deny this. And they've threatened to advance as far as Congo's capital, Kinshasa. How can this be avoided?
Well, the M23 is clearly gaining grounds because of the support that it has from the government of Rwanda. And that is partly because the president of Rwanda himself was a rebel leader or a warlord, if you like, and of course has sympathy for the Tutsis in the DRC. How can we avoid a situation where they expand further into Kinshasa? I've talked about one of them, which is constituting a body of eminent persons. And I think that the United Nations should not wait until there's a greater existential crisis before beginning to call for truth. The United Nations already should be on ground, possibly boots on ground, having some of those meetings in between the DRC and Rwanda or any of the neighboring countries. Angola has clearly demonstrated incapacity to do this. And so the UN has a role to play, the EU has a role to play, the AU has a role to play, other regional bodies have a role to play. And if force were to be introduced, I think that should also happen. How can we avoid the M23 rebels going further? The first thing that has to be done is to get Paul Kagame to beat a retreat, which is to pull out his troops or get them to be there only on peacekeeping mission. The diplomatic talks have to be, the ante of diplomatic talks have to be raised. There's also humanitarian assistance which is needed from the bodies that should do that, the Red Cross, Medicines Sans Frontières, and all whatnot. And I think that the issue in the DRC should take a more prominent place in international discourse. It's currently as if the world is going on as if nothing is happening in DRC. So there needs to be a group of lobbyists or lobbying that should bring the matter to the forefront.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Babajide Benson, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your contributions on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We'll take a break now on the program. Still ahead. Preparations in top gear for the Global Entrepreneurship Week 2025, scheduled for later this year. Please stay with us for more details. Welcome back to the program. Over the weekend, spectators and officials at the West Coast Saldanha Bay Air Show in South Africa were left stunned and horrified after a pilot lost control of his aircraft during a final maneuver demonstration and was killed in the fiery crash. According to air show officials in a press release, highly skilled and respected South African test pilot James O'Connell was completing his final maneuver in an Impala Mark I Warbird aircraft when the plane suddenly nosedived and plummeted forcefully into the ground. The crash causing a fireball of flames and smoke to billow into the sky upon impact. Well, the fun-filled day of watching dozens of vintage aircraft perform in South Africa's sky ended tragically. According to the organizers, the pilot was performing a routine display on a retired military aircraft when it suddenly experienced a loss of altitude and entered a steep dive. Authorities say an investigation into the accident is currently underway as tributes continue to pour in for the former Air Force pilot. An informal meeting of the United Nations General Assembly plenary is held in New York to hear a briefing by South Africa's G20 Sherpa, Zane Dango, as the country assumes the G20 presidency up until the 30th of November 2025. South Africa has set the theme for its G20 presidency as solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Addressing the UN plenary, Mr. Dango elaborated on the vision, saying South Africa seeks to achieve a future that is people-centered, development-oriented, and inclusive. He also highlights the interconnectedness of global challenges and stressed the importance of fairness and equality.
Through solidarity, we seek to achieve a future that is people-centered, development-oriented, and inclusive. In an interconnected world, the challenges faced by one nation affects all of us. It affects all nations. By advancing equality, we seek to ensure fair treatment, opportunities, and the advancement of all individuals, peoples, and nations, irrespective of their economic status, gender, race, geographic location, or any other characteristics. With sustainability, we seek to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So we will be working to strengthen disaster resilience and responses. We are also focusing on means to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. And here we are particularly focused on looking at the cost of capital for African and other developing countries. As was been pointed earlier, the aim here is to develop a comprehensive strategy to assess why we have significant costs of capital for some countries in a manner that inhibits their development potential. We also seek to mobilize finance for a just energy transition. We've put on the agenda as well the need to harness critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development. We welcome the African Union's inclusion in the G20, which is an important opportunity to amplify Africa's voice in global economic governance while ensuring that the development priorities of the African continent and the global South find expression firmly and permanently onto the agenda of the G20.
Coming up later this year during the Global Entrepreneurship Week 2025, the Global Entrepreneurship Festival will take center stage at the world's first entrepreneurship village in Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria. Hosted by the Entrepreneurship Village, often called Africa's Silicon Valley, this event is an initiative of Africa's Young Entrepreneurs Organization, the continent's network. In preparation for the festival, organizers recently held a global press conference and business mixer in Johannesburg, South Africa. Our correspondent, Innocent Semosa, has more.
This year's Global Entrepreneurship Festival is set to take place under the theme, The AI-Powered Entrepreneurs, Creating a Sustainable Future.
It's called festival for a reason. It's a lot of business noise, partnership noise, collaborations. You know, we're not just doing government to government anymore. Because government to government, yes, there's a lot of handshakes. They know what I'm talking about. but we're doing people to people. With people to people, when I fall in love with you, then I will love your country. I don't know your country, I met you.
Brand South Africa recognizes this event as a crucial platform for collaboration and innovation.
I think when we speak of entrepreneurship, it is a defining moment for most of the African economies.
Well, organizers have also outlined key discussions that participants can expect, aimed at equipping African entrepreneurs with the tools to scale their businesses globally.
So we have from fashion, I love fashion. So there will be a fashion show that will be taking place. There will be an agriculture. So it will be a lot different industry that will be touched on. And also because I love music, as the Miriam Makeba chairperson, there will be a music closing concert.
It is the most important event. We had such an incredible amount of people coming from so many countries last year, and the deals that happened, the collaboration and the agreements that were made at the event this year is going to be so much bigger.
But what impact will this festival have on Africa's entrepreneurial ecosystem?
You know, we come from a fortunate country with a lot of talent, but limited opportunities. And the only way people can grow and learn is for them to come to platforms like this. And for me, I think as a businessman, as a countryman, and a pioneer of change, I felt it's important for me to participate in any means possible to make sure that this happens and it's a success.
As entrepreneurs navigate an increasingly challenging economic climate, Somi Francis shares an inspiring message for those looking to drive innovation and growth.
Of course, one thing about this journey, it takes time. Time is part of it. And I think that's one major thing entrepreneurs do not take note of. That time is part of the journey. It's not going to be overnight for you. It's not going to be in a year. It's going to take years. And in the midst of all, consistency is key. Holding on to what you believe in, staying through all those trials, and of course, be present for your days of testimony. Because at the end of the day, many actually give up the day before they are supposed to break through.
With Africa's entrepreneurial landscape rapidly evolving, the Global Entrepreneurship Festival promises to be a game changer, fostering innovation, collaboration, and sustainable growth across the continent. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And back here in Lagos State, the wife of the governor, Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu, says more deliberate action must be taken to end the spread of tuberculosis in Lagos State and Nigeria at large. She was speaking at the 2025 World TB Day event held at Alausa, and she also commends the efforts of all the partners, saying more work needs to be done in collaboration with the state government to end TB in Lagos.
Every year, 24th of March is observed as World TB Day to amplify the urgency of ending tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is one of the deadliest infectious diseases and has continued to devastate people, with 10.8 million affected globally. In Lagos, the state recorded 17,280 TB cases in 2022, a health challenge that requires continuous sensitization, which is why the State Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the Office of the First Lady's TB Steering Committee and other partners, is creating awareness about the disease. They moved from Alausa Secretariat to the State Assembly Road to share flyers and enlighten the people about the symptoms of the disease, which is in commemoration of the 2025 World TB Day. After the walk, the senior health officers and other guests converge on Fulari Coker Conference Hall to engage the health practitioners on how to manage tuberculosis.
We need to improve on the screening as well. It's a simple questionnaire. Have you been coughing? The most significant question there is if you've been coughing for over 2 weeks. Anyone can ask that question. It can be part of any one of our clinics. And anybody who answers yes to that can then be put through the system.
This disease needs to be eradicated. We're doing a lot, but we need to do more.
In 2024, about 19,000 residents in Lagos were diagnosed with TB, keeping the state government on its toes on how best to curb the spread and also provide treatment for patients.
But Nigeria is the first in Africa and sixth in the world with countries with triple strategy, which is TB, MDR-TB, and TB-HIV. Currently, last year alone, Lagos State accounts for 9% of national TB burden. Contact tracing is an important strategy in all infectious diseases, including TB.
Prevention is better than cure. If we can create enough awareness, we'll be able to prevent it so that it doesn't even happen in the first place. And then, if there is, we're able to access care with them.
The World Health Organization and other partners are willing to work with the state government to curb the spread of TB.
The childhood TB remains a big issue in the state. So far, we have been working so hard in identifying TB cases, and the state has done a lot. But we still need to work harder in expanding TB services and also ensuring that more children are identified.
It would be nice if more nurses or adult staffs are being trained and deployed to facilities so that they can help in bridging that gap, so that people that commence treatment don't stop.
Wife of the Lagos State Governor, Dr. Abijoke Sanwo-Olu, who is also a TB champion, appeals to partners to strengthen their advocacy in eradicating tuberculosis.
Our course to end TB will be more aggressive, and our goal in 2030, even before 2030, will be achieved. We can end TB, commit, invest, deliver.
The Lagos State government says screening and treatment of TB is free across all general hospitals and primary healthcare centers in the state. And everyone is encouraged to get tested, thereby keeping Lagos free from tuberculosis.
That's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.